across it, you may discover something new.
And this is all human effort, which is full of flaws and mistakes and shortcomings.
But in Surah Yusuf, who knows what Allah said at the beginning of the surah?
No one? What was it called? What type of qasas? There was an adjective before the term qasas. Ahsan. Well, what does ahsan mean? Oh, there are some people named ahsan, right? What is ahsan? It actually can mean better or best. Arabic and English are quite different. In English you have comparative and superlative. He's better than him, he's the best. In Arabic, when you say that term, which is af'al al-tafdeel, it could actually mean either to compare with someone or in the ultimate sense. That's why you say Allahu Akbar. It's a term actually is kabir. And Allahu Akbar as in greater than anything, and Akbar as in the greatest. So ahsan is the best stories. And no matter how many times you read it, or how many times you hear it, I mean, we all know the story of Yusuf. I think everyone here must have read it at least once in his language. So what makes it so interesting that every time you hear it, you go through that whole experience again? Well, it's the speech of Allah. And this is the point we want to highlight, the differentiation between human speech and the speech of Allah. The Quran is kalamullah, as Allah called it in the Quran, حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ, until he gets to hear the speech of Allah. If one of the mushrikeen, Allah said to the Prophet ﷺ, if one of the mushrikeen seeks your protection, so let them grant him protection until he gets to hear kalamullah. Then allow him to make it to his place of safety until the end of the ayah. I believe in Surah At-Tawbah. The point being that the Quran is the speech of Allah. And we are created. And Allah is uncreated. Therefore our speech is created and the speech of Allah is uncreated. It's one of the attributes of Allah. It's one of the attributes of Allah. So the same way Allah Azza wa Jal is perfect in the ultimate sense, His speech is perfect in the ultimate sense. There are absolutely no flaws in it. Now the scholars who do tafsir can highlight so much from Surah Yusuf, it's amazing. In fact, some of them have compiled them in benefits at the end of the surah, exceeding 100. One of them is the ability to switch scenes in one ayah. Meaning, if you read the actual surah, you go through so many different scenes within the surah, and it's only one ayah. Each one of them is one ayah, maybe 3 or 4 lines, taking you around, which is really miraculous in a sense. Now, of course, you can try to visualize how it was back then, in the whole story with Yusuf. But at the end of the day, that amazing element is how it switches around. And how, when Allah Azza wa Jal mentions one ayah, now I wanted to actually open the Quran and mention some examples. But for whatever I recall, so I will not take too much time. How, when one ayah is mentioned describing the event of Yusuf's interaction with his own brothers, right? Then in your mind, even though you know, you want to hear the following ayah that continues the conversation between them, right? When they said to him that he had a brother who previously stole before, and they're speaking to Yusuf, and they're accusing him of stealing, even though they are the ones who threw him in the well. And he kept it in himself. He did not display or express to them the feelings he had. Antum sharrum makanan. You are in a more evil situation, because now they're accusing Yusuf and his brother, who are both innocent. But then here Allah Azza wa Jal will insert the lesson. Before you go to the next ayah, which you're now anticipating, you hear first Allah Azza wa Jal commentary on the situation of the human beings with the creatures. And then it switches back to the story. So there's that switch. Anyways, let's just pick some ayat from the surah which are relevant to our daily lives, or that we can benefit from in a practical way. The first one is the priorities in da'wah. Nowadays, there's all types of propaganda against Islam. And you may try to give da'wah to your Christian or Hindu colleague at work, and then he tells you something about why are Muslim men allowed to have sexual relations with their right hand possession. You guys know that, right? Mulkul Yameen. Some Muslims get shocked when they hear this because they themselves don't know it. Mulkul Yameen, right hand possession, is that if you own one, time out, don't go buy one now, because whatever you buy is probably not legitimate. But if you own the right hand possession, which is the woman that Muslims acquire upon the end of a war with the non-Muslims, the Muslims defeat the non-Muslims, the woman folks become property, just like you have a car, a house, apartment, whatever. And this woman is lawful for the Muslim man who is married with kids. She's not his wife. But Allah Azza wa Jal allowed that man to have relations with her. Evidence, there are many ayat in the Quran. إِلَّا عَلَى أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ In the Quran, with those وَلِهُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ, those who protect them and cover their private parts, except to their azwaj, wives, or whatever their right hand possess. فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ, there's no harm, there's no blame on them regarding that. فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Whoever seeks anything other than these two, those are the transgressors. Girlfriend, right? Or a friend who's not yet a girlfriend, or any of these other things. Now we go into the area of danger, where people freely have relations. We seek Allah's protection. Either you're married or you're not, as we mentioned before. You're engaged on the verge of getting married. Al-Muhim. So how do we get there? Now, so a non-Muslim who may be aware of some of the teachings of Islam, or may have read some websites which are specifically made to attack us, he may know this information which you don't know. Or he may tell you, why can a man marry 4 women? Or how come the man has double the inheritance of a woman? Or how come women have to cover themselves? And how come, and how come, and how come, and why? You don't know the answers. What do? You say, stay a Christian, ma fi mushkila. Salah, Islam is not for you. You have all these problems already? No problem. Christian, miya, you're good. At least you're one of the people of the book. Huh? Is that a solution? Can you leave him as a Christian, or do you still have to give him da'wah? How do you give him da'wah? You go study now a course in da'wah and learn all the misconceptions and answers to them? Not everybody can do this. So what is the solution? No one has a solution? Quran? The Quran doesn't highlight any of this stuff in this manner. The Quran is not going to answer these misconceptions. Yes, this is why the story of Yusuf is important. The 2 prisoners who were with Yusuf, they came to him and told him that we saw a dream. Each one of them saw a dream. One of them saw he was crucified and the birds were eating from his head and so on and so forth, according to the interpretation. And another one saw that he was serving some alcohol, some wine to his boss, or his Rabb, yani. Back then it was the person in charge. So, explain to us this dream. Now, in the case of Yusuf, he knew the interpretation. But the lesson which we need to learn was taught for the rest of the ummah, or for the rest of the people until the end of time. He did not say anything about the interpretation. The first thing he did was give him da'wah to Tawheed. And the ayat are very clear. Read them on your own time, read them. Until he said to them, Ya صاحبي السجن أأرباب متفرقون خير أم الله الواحد القهار. Oh companions of prison, are many gods better? You go to a Hindu. You have Brahman, they have Shiva and Vishnu, and every day they come up with a god. Say, are all these gods, you don't know which one you're worshipping? In every country they have a different shape of the idol, elephants and monkeys and rats and all kinds of disgusting stuff really, that they worship besides Allah. Are all these better, or Allah the one, the irresistible? You are worshipping nothing besides it except names that you and your forefathers gave, which is exactly what the Hindus and Christians today have. So he gave him da'wah to Tawheed. And then he said, as for your dreams, then he interpreted the dreams. So the ulama say, in essence, your job and my job when it comes to da'wah is only Qul Huwallahu Ahad. To summarize it, you don't have to have the answers for all the misconceptions. Your job is to convey to this person Tawheed. If Tawheed doesn't register, nothing else will register. If that person, excuse me, is too dumb to understand Tawheed, he will not be intelligent to understand polygamy in Islam and having 4 wives and all the other rulings. To him it is outlandish, because Tawheed to him is outlandish. And if Tawheed is outlandish, this person is distorted. His fitrah is corrupt. So nothing else will make sense. Don't bother. Don't bother. Now if you can, Jazakallah khair. But you don't feel the need or the pressure to be able to explain all these misconceptions. So the first lesson is Tawheed. If you convey Tawheed, you have done the job. Anything extra is a bonus for you in your da'wah. But it is not necessarily expected. It is not expected. Another point of highlight in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam is the fact that when he wanted to describe the situation with his brothers, I mean his brothers did something really bad to him. They took him from his father, they lied to their father, they pretended that he was eaten by a wolf, they threw him in the well. I mean that was just some really bad stuff. And at the end, when time came for forgiveness, he forgave them. They said, "Inna kunna min al-khati'in." We were among the wrongdoers. He said, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm, yaghfiru Allahu lakum." There will be no blame against you today. Allah will forgive you. So he had this, and this is a quality which we miss, specifically me. We need to learn how to forgive and pardon. It's a very difficult thing. It takes a lot of discipline to control your own emotions and your own ego and your own stuff and be able to pardon. Allah understand. We ask Allah to give us this quality. It's a beautiful quality. After all this to say, no problem, may Allah forgive you. And then later on, what did he say? When he's speaking to his father, he said, Allah has made this ru'ya come true. Because he saw in the beginning the sun and the moon and 11 planets prostrating to him. He said, after the shaitan, Allah has brought me out of prison and brought you from the Badu, after the shaitan caused the difference between me and my brothers. Did you notice what he said? So he didn't say, my brothers, did all these bad things to me. He said, no, he blamed the shaitan. And he included himself even though he didn't do anything. He said, the shaitan is the one who came in between us and separated us so that all this happened. Even though technically speaking, it was his brothers who did things to him, he didn't do anything back to them. So this was the choice of words. Then of course the fact that Yusuf alayhi salam was able to resist the temptation of women. And today the temptation of women has multiplied. It has multiplied because now women, for a while they have been like this, but in modern days with the television and all that stuff, women are everywhere. No item is sold without a woman being involved. From shaving foam to candy bars, to tires, vehicles, anything, they have to include some half-naked woman so that the whole transaction can go smoothly. It's just human mentality. And now with Facebook and Twitter and you name it, then the availability of these random women now from all over the world, not only locally, has become even greater, specifically to the teenagers and the young. So in Yusuf we have a lesson. I mean, in the Quran there's a surah called Yusuf, which we have been reading for over 1400 years, the Muslim Ummah, and will continue to read it until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And all of us love Yusuf, don't we? And we all praise him and appreciate him. Why? Because he didn't fall for the temptation. Had he done so, maybe there would be no Surah Yusuf. And Allah would not have raised his rank the way Allah did. So the bottom line is, when you're in this predicament, we have to control ourselves. We have to remember that we may have a little fun now, but then we will pay for a long time. It could be both in this dunya and in the life to come. And it is not worth it. So do it the halal way. Do it the halal way. For the parents, help your children get married. If you're financially well off and you can support them, don't be miserly. And don't wait for him to graduate, then become a muhandis, then become a doctor, then a PhD, then he has to buy a house, then he has to have 3 cars in the garage, then let's go look for a wife for you. He's already rotted, with gray hair, he's about to, be buried the next week. Then now we can look for a wife. All of these cultural complications don't exist in our deen. It's much easier. So marriage is a solution. Until then, the teenagers, you have to control yourselves and take a lesson from Yusuf alayhi salam. Of course, there are many more lessons to be discussed, but the time doesn't allow. But I hope inshallah in that which we heard, there's a benefit for myself and for you. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. السلام عليكم.